Sabhaye Namaha. Generally, we can feel proud to say the cultural heritage is fully based on India. From India only, it was expanded to the every nook and corner of the world. The ancient days, and that means before independence, we were united without partition of Pakistan and all. At that moment, there was a great art and culture of Gandhara. Gandhara culture is an ancient one in the world history, not an ordinary. Generally, we can say it is located in Peshawar. Now it is in Pakistan. Okay, especially in Himalaya regions. Gandhara culture is mainly based on the philosophy of Buddhism. Even King Ashoka, who was the monarch of the Kalinga kingdom, enriched with the art and culture of Gandhara. Gandhara culture is not an ordinary one. It has sculpture means Shilpa Kala. Even we can say Gandharans emulated King Ashoka, further dividing Buddha's relics and building monuments. Gandhara art is not an ordinary one. Previously, in our Indian country, we had the famous universities like Nalanda Vishwavidyalaya and Takshashila Vishwavidyalaya, Vikramashila Vishwavidyalaya. In these three universities, there were lots of students, not only from India, every part of the world. What for they had come to India, they wanted to learn culture and heritage of each and every part of the world. In that time, there was heavily emphasized about the principles of Buddhism. Even the King Ashoka also, who was a great warrior, killed so many soldiers during the battle Kalinga, was changed his mind to avoid the war in his lifetime, wanted to get peace in his ruling. How? Because he was inspired a lot by the philosophy of Buddhism. The philosophy of Buddha also originated from the Hindu philosophy. We can say it is a kind of branch. They took all the principles from Hindu mythology, Hindu culture. Especially Hinduism, those days brought and gave so many gifts to the various cultural and heritage. In this regard, our ancestors might know well about Gandhara culture, but the present generation may not know what is Gandhara. That's why today I took the topic of Gandhara cultural history. Why? Because through this video, through this speech, our present generation has to know each and every culture of the world, especially Gandhara culture, which is going to be hidden one. That we have to bring into limelight for the present generation and forthcoming generation also through this present generation. In this regard, we work hard to emphasize more on our culture and heritage to the upcoming generations. That's my motto. Let me discuss more about Gandhara cultural history. Let us start with prayer. Gurave sarvalokanam Bhishaje bhavaroginam Nidaye sarvavidyanam Dakshinamurtaye namaha. The ancient region of Gandhara was located in the agricultural plains of Peshawar Basin in the foothills of the Himalayas in what is today northwest Pakistan. For centuries, it was an incredibly wealthy area owing to its position along the Silk Road trade routes linking China, South Asia, and Mediterranean. Known from vast archaeological remains, Gandhara is also mentioned in various early religious texts. A few ancient inscriptions and the accounts of Chinese religious pilgrims. The territory was defined by natural boundaries. The Hindu Kush mountain range to the west, high foothills to the north, and the Indus River to the east. To south, the basin surrounding the modern city of Peshawar opens onto increasingly arid plains. Beyond the foothills north of Gandhara was the ancient region of Udayana, which had the high Swat Valley at its core. To the west, across the Hindu Kush, in what is now Afghanistan, lay the ancient region of Nagarhara, with Bactria to the northwest. Greater Gandhara, an area whose cultural development was interrelated but owing to its mountainous terrain also somewhat independent. To reach the regions in Afghanistan, for example, travelers from Gandhara proper had to traverse the Khyber Pass, although it is in close geographic proximity to Gandhara, was similarly isolated. Artistic production of Greater Gandhara can thus generally be divided into that coming from Gandhara proper, the Swat Valley, or Afghanistan. The art of this religion is a compelling fusion of foreign styles that ultimately gave visual form to Buddhist religious ideals in northwest Pakistan and Afghanistan. More sculpture and architecture made in the service of Buddhism has been found in Greater Gandhara than in any other part of ancient South Asia. Our understanding of the culture that produced this art is limited by the poor quality of early excavations, which left many questions unanswered, by a paucity of ancient written records and inscriptions on sculpture and architecture, and most recently by the deliberate destruction of large portions of Afghanistan's cultural heritage. Gandhara's strategic location along the Silk Road and the great wealth it derived from that commercial trade attracted wave upon wave of foreign invaders who occupied the area in turn. Between the 4th century BC and 7th century AD, Gandhara was controlled successively by the Greeks, Indo-Greeks, Shakas, Parthians, Kushans, Huns, and other political entities who introduced diverse religious traditions and artistic conventions. The earliest remain from Gandhara, dating from the 2nd century BC to the 1st century AD, are mostly luxury goods found in urban centers such as Sirkap, one of the cities that constituted the ancient site of Takshashila. Significant among these are a number of the stone dishes which likely had a domestic ritual function that provide strong evidence of Gandharan's contacts with us and its Hellenistic, Alexandrian, and Parthian trading partners. By the early 1st century AD, the Kushans had taken control of most of North Indian Gandhara proper and the ancient Afghan regions of Bactria and Nagarhara, and for a time they brought political stability to these areas. This led to increased economic prosperity as an international trade flourished along the well-established land and sea routes, and the gradual settlement and growth of Gandharan Buddhist communities. Buddhism, which had emerged from the Ganges basin, was embraced by the Gandharan people, whose control of the expanding of Silk Road trade and resulting affluence gave them the means to invest vast sums of money in the construction of Buddhist monasteries and sacred areas. Indeed, the gradual but uninterrupted flow of patronage within Greater Gandhara allows us to trace certain changes in the development of Buddhist ideology from about the 2nd through the 8th century AD. As patrons chose to spend money on imagery that had immediate devotional relics of significance. In other words, patronage can be seen as a direct reflection of belief. In this sense, the donation of sculpture provides a clearer picture of ideological interests than do texts, which can be neither easily deleted nor placed within evolving regional traditions. Under the Kushans, many new Buddhist sites were founded in Gandhara during the 2nd century AD. Most of them organized around a monastery and a stupa, a solid round monastery structure in which relics of Buddha were embedded. These stupas were decorated with narrative reliefs recounting the Buddha's life and actions. Beginning in the 3rd century AD, devotional icons of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas appeared. These were typically non-narrative figures meant to be associated not like with a biological event but with major concepts in the religion, such as Buddha's enlightenment. Gradually, these devotional figures grew made complex in terms of iconography and formed the 4th up to the 7th century AD. Some devotional icons also became truly monumental in size. An immense amount of new construction occurred at Afghanistan Buddhist sites between the 5th and 8th century AD, the period when the great Buddhas at Banyan were erected. The rich Buddhist traditions of Greater Gandhara finally came to an end, sometimes in the 8th and 9th century, after a series of invasions introduced a new religion, Islam, that supplanted and eventually eclipsed Buddhist practice in the region. Now we can see the historical Buddha known as Sakya Muni. We know Siddhartha Gautama and Tathagata, among other names, was raised as a prince in the Ganges basin of North India. About the end of the 6th century BC, he renounced the worldly life to search for a solution to human suffering, and through spiritual discipline, he reached a state of enlightenment. broadly defined as the cessation of desire. The Buddha went on to explain dharma, mean path or way, for others to attain enlightenment, which entailed breaking free from samsara dictated by karma. Doctrine of karma. The Buddha's earliest doctrines expounded on themes of personal responsibility, although he did not deny the existence of the various gods venerated by the community or their heavens. He viewed these deities as similarly caught in the cycle of rebirth, means punarjanma, and thus ultimately irrelevant to the goals of breaking free from attachment and coming to a realization of the nature of existence. When the Buddha died, having already reached enlightenment, he achieved a state of non existence known as nirvana. In this regard, he is sometimes likened to a flame that was extinguished, mean put out. He was then cremated according to religious texts, and his ashes were divided and placed into existence 8 reliquaries, which in turn were buried at the center of 8 large solid hemispheric mounds known as stupas. Now you might have understood what is stupa. It's one of the monumental Buddha's ashes. In the 3rd century BC, King Ashoka of the North India, especially Mauryan dynasty, opened the 8 original stupas, thereby making the Buddha's remains and enshrined them in 84,000 stupas. The act of subdividing the relics and founding these new sacred precincts generated tremendous positive karma for Ashoka and established the paradigm for the idealist Buddhist king. Although Ashoka's stupas are difficult to identify in the archaeological record, they were likely built at many of the important Buddhist centers in the Ganges basin. It has been suggested that Buddhist sites such as Sanchi or Saranath in central India have Mauryan origin because on the presence of columns there inscribed with Ashokan edicts, but similar early attributions cannot be made at Buddhist sites in Gandhara especially. A few Ashokan rock cut edicts that remain in Afghanistan and Pakistan do not directly address the introduction of Buddhism into Gandhara. Many scholars have nonetheless considered them evidence of the beginning of Buddhism in the region. Not until the early 2nd century BC, however, was the earliest datable Buddhist site. But Karawan in the Swat Valley, founded in Greater Gandhara, the only other Buddhist site in Gandhara that can be attributed to the 2nd century BC is the Dharmarajika complex in Takshashila near Sirkap. Entering the monastic order was the easiest way for the lay community to influence their next rebirth was to generate good karma, sat karma, by earning merit such as supporting to monastic order or donating structures and sculpted images in Buddhist sacred areas. To that end, noble Gandharans emulated King Ashoka by further dividing the Buddha's relics and buildings, new stupas and monastery to generate merit for themselves, their families, and the people of their kingdom. The dated inscription incised on a Gandharan reliquary in the Metropolitan's collection describes the motivations of a local prince, Indravarman, for enshrining relics of Buddha. The reliquary means a kind of shrine or pilgrimage, we can say another way. And another example in a museum's collection, which has a carved inscription that lists the donor Ramaka, likely the maternal uncle of Indravarman, have proved crucial to determining the genealogy of the rulers of the small kingdom of Avaka in the region of Bajavur, just northwest ancient Gandhara. Indravarman's inscription specifies the era of King Aziz, giving it an absolute date of 5th and 6th century AD, and making the shrine one of the rare, securely dated objects in all Gandharan art. The Indravarman was careful to state in the inscription that he was placing body relics of the Buddha, means Sakyamuni, in a new, previously unestablished location, an action that generated great merit. In this sense, he, means like Ashoka, created a new sacred center by dividing the relics and then taking a portion of them in procession for deposit in a place described as being secure, safe, and deep. Most likely the core of a large stupa. The inscription then tells us that this produced Brahma merit, meaning happiness in the heaven equivalent to a day in the life of Hindu god Brahma. We can say Brahmanandam. In other words, it is not enlightenment but rebirth in heaven that was the intended results of this donation. Indravarman was also able to transfer this merit and hence an auspicious rebirth to his extended family. Most of the inscription is a list of these relations. The establishment of 5th and 6th century AD and making the shrine one of the rare, securely dated objects in all Gandharan art. Indravarman was careful to the state in the inscription that he was placing body relics of Buddha Sakyamuni in a new, previously unestablished location, an action that generated great merit. In this sense, he, like Ashoka, created a new sacred center by dividing the relics and they taking portion of them in procession for deposit in a place described as being secure, safe, and deep. In this way, most likely the core of large stupa, we can find more on this regard, sacred enclosure as well as a monastery. The monastic establishment was essential because the patron gained merit only of his donations were used. The monks would thus venerate, or respect the relics and make it possible for the lay community to respect them as well. Many extant Gandharan reliquaries contain a variety of objects, including glass beads and pieces of crystal, gold foil with salient designs, and coins that were donated to the relic and placed inside the shrine. Remains from the royal burials at Tillaya Tepe, 15th BC and 15th AD between. In Afghanistan, certain silver and gold jewelry and gold designed ornaments similar to items found in Buddhist shrines. Perfume jars and cosmetic cases have also been found in such royal burials, many comparable in shape and size to Buddhist shrines. Coins were sometimes interred with the relic deposits, and many reliquaries have been dated according to the numismatic, collecting evidence. It should be noted, however, that while patterns probably put current coins into relic deposits, coins from ancient or earlier deposits were occasionally reinterred because of sustained contact with the relic, sometimes contributing to faulty date attributions. Some Gandharan shrines were designed as miniature stupas. Means the form of a stupa can be conceived as a three-dimensional diagram of the cosmos, the base being associated with the profane world, the dome being the pure realm of the relic, and the stake, umbrellas on top relating to the heavens on suitable manner. The ST, the pole supporting the umbrellas, can be understood as the cosmic axis connecting these plans of existence and relating to the Buddha on this earth, or Buddha to the center of the cosmos. The model derives from legends of Shakyamuni's life, which tell that when he was finally ready to reach enlightenment, he traveled to the city of Bodh Gaya and sat at the cosmic axis of the universe, and the relic of the Buddhism can be found in the stupa's axis transformed the structure into a seat of enlightenment. At the same time, the stupa itself also connoted the Buddha's death and the formless state of nirvana. Another way we can discuss, in the Ganges basin in North India, where the Buddha Shakyamuni lived, the sacred sites associated with his life took an incomparable importance of the exceeded even that of his bodily relics. Particularly important sites include Lumbini, where he was born, Ayodhya, also one of the example. Bodh Gaya, where he reached enlightenment, Saranada, the great site of his first sermon, and the conversion of the 5 ascetics who became the first Buddhist monks, and Kushinagara, the place of his death and passed to the Nirvana. Since Gandhara was far from 3 places, there the Buddha's physical remains took preservance for worshippers and pilgrims Chinese pilgrimages, for example, consider the relics at sites in Afghanistan and Gandharan rather than the sacred sites of North India. The culmination of their travels through Central Asia. Early Buddhist sculpture is described like this. The earliest sculpture from Buddhist context in Gandhara dates to no earlier than the 1st century AD. And not surprisingly, the first donated scriptures, embellished relic stupas, in the metropolitans collect two garlands, holders, and volutes that would have been affixed to the drum of a stupa to support strings of flower. We know from sculpture representation that stupas were often bedecked with floral garlands. Such a formal elements can also be linked to stylistic elaboratives from the early North Indian Buddhist site of Bharat, reflecting the innocence, significance of ideas and art forms coming into the Gandhara from the region where the Buddha had lived. Thus, Gandhara art was depicted beautifully to understand its greatness. Thus, we can come across the great Gandhara cultural heritage which brought into limelight in the entire world. Now, I conclude. Shriyakantaya Kalyana Nidhe Nidhe Sri Venkatramasa Srinivasaya Mangalam Mangala Sasavaya Madacharya Progami Sarvesha Purvairacharya Satkruta Ayastu Mangalam.